Here we are in the squad room with the Good Squad members and Dave Benson. You probably already heard about Dave in our first part of the episode. If you haven't seen that part, we'd encourage you to go take a look at that first. You'll get an introduction to Dave, and the conversation will make a lot more sense if you view that before you review this. So let's continue on, Dave, and thank you again for being here.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So, continuing on with places of worship and the safety concerns there, are there any particular warning signs that are relevant specifically to religious settings? I guess it doesn't have to be specific, but what do we kind of see as those warning signs that are occurring in situations in places of worship?
Sure. Well, as you might imagine, they can be vast, myriad, if you will. But let's talk about some examples. Number one of the things we do when I train houses of worship, I want to train their volunteer staff,
Mm-hmm.
all of them. I want to train their ministry staff, professional and otherwise, the pastoral staff, in addition to safety and security team members,
Mm-hmm.
church elders, whatever that might be. We're looking for something that doesn't seem right. We
Right.
talked before about the dreaded DLR. It don't look right. So how do people normally react when they come to your church or house of worship? The protocols, do they look like they belong? Are they agitated?
Mm-hmm.
Are they distancing themselves from others? Do they have something like a backpack or a bag? Do they leave it behind? Are they nervous? Are they jittery? And so that's the first thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have to determine, how are you going to look at that? You can't just bull rush everybody that comes into a church or a mosque. Or, I mean, you can, but you're going to have three practitioners, and your pastor is going to throw you out your ear.
Right.
So literally, it's killing them with kindness. What do I mean by that? Hi, sir. I'm Dave Benson. I'm one of the greeters here. Can I help you find anything? I don't think I've seen you here before. And that would be the same approach, whether you're suspicious or you think they're just legitimately lost. Give them an opportunity to express themselves in a positive way, right? Not threatening.
Right.
So that's why when I spend a lot of time with safety and security teams, we don't want to get gruff and rough with people if we don't have to.
Right.
You're going to get a lot more with honey than you are with vinegar. So yeah, if there's safety in numbers, let somebody know if you're going to go talk to somebody, or you might get word in the parking lot that this family had just had a huge fight in the parking lot. The man stormed off, and now he's coming straight into church. Whatever that might be. The more we know ahead of time before it actually gets into the church or the house of worship, the
Mm-hmm.
sanctuary, the better off we are. We don't want to find this stuff in the middle of the worship service. So what's happening
Mm-hmm.
outside there? We can make some intervention strategies, which mean, hey, can I help you? I'm sorry, you appear to be under the influence. That's not something we do here, but hey, we can point you in the right direction. A lot of different ways you can do it. We still have the ability to step it up and escalate if we need to, but escalation should not be the first thing. Second thing is, I'm a big fan of having some people in the safety and security team you can see
Mm-hmm.
and some you can't. And
Right.
so what I mean by that is just let them observe. I mean, one of the things I used to love to do when we had what we call a DLR, somebody didn't look right to us,
Mm-hmm.
I'd put one of our plainclothes safety team members sitting right next to him
Yeah.
before the service and engage them in conversation and
Right.
see it. And you could see what's kind of going on, and you'd get a report back. If you're fortunate enough to have a ministry that has closed circuit TVs in the sanctuary,
Mm-hmm.
you can talk to them, find out what the behavior is, and do what you can to kind of neutralize the potential threat. Because maybe it's the middle of the service, maybe the pastor is already up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that I spend a lot of time is training the ministerial staff. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows better if there's a problem in their sanctuary
That's
than the
right.
person up there at the pulpit? So I want them to be part of the solution, not the problem. We have codes, expressions,
Mm-hmm.
just so we know that the pastor is not happy or there's a problem somewhere without necessarily doing that. So that takes time and training, but we're looking for behaviors of concern.
Mm-hmm.
And before it becomes escalation, what we call intentional and targeted violence. So it's knowing who's coming into your facility. It's approaching them in a positive way and having second and third order consequences to take care of that problem. Because, Jim, in reality, you know what your biggest problem is in ministry safety? Someone drops over with a heart attack, not somebody that walks in with a weapon.
That's right.
So, yeah, we want to pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, we also want to make sure that we have maybe a doctor that's part of the team. The biggest safety team I had in the Tampa Bay area had on-duty police, off-duty police, firefighter, paramedics, and then just good old-fashioned people that just loved the Lord and wanted to help. They were properly trained, and everybody had their role and responsibility. There's safeties and numbers in that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a very good point, and that is your example, the heart attack. We're asking people that are going to serve in these positions to have an entire kind of cadre of different responses, right? Because some of them are going to be this very visible. Someone is in a medical emergency. We need to jump in and provide emergency care, support, whatever it might be. And then those others where, like you said, sitting next to a potential parishioner, not necessarily introducing themselves as a safety and security team member, but as maybe just an usher or a greeter, those sort of things. I think when kind of things started to change, we started to see a lot of this religious kind of violence or violence in houses of worship. There was a knee-jerk reaction in many organizations. Several that I saw, we went to the FBI, or let's say the Secret Service look, right? The dark suits, earpieces, dark sunglasses, even in churches I've seen, stay in the corner, and immediately you walk in, you go, wow, is this really where I want to be?
Right.
Because either it just feels intrusive, because these eyes watching you, or it feels like, I bet there's a problem here because there's all these kind of Secret Service looking individuals around me. So I think that is so important to kind of find that balance there. Any other thoughts on just kind of how we kind of go about training individuals to be able to provide these services while still being that friendly welcome? The whole purpose of us being here is to welcome you to be here, and we want you to come.
Yeah, that's a key. And so when I do an assessment for a house of worship, I'm looking at to see kind of what's the demographics, the size. Are there any particular, I call it dogmatic or particular tendencies of that denomination or group that could be to the outside world a lack of understanding. For example, one of the churches that I did a lot of work with, who shall remain nameless, they were very evangelical to the point that it wasn't unusual to have somebody fall out of the chairs speaking in tongues. Well, and I'm not making fun of that, but when you're training safety team people or police officers coming in, the conversation would go like this. Okay, are they having a medical emergency? No, they're just speaking in tongues. Okay, are they angry? No, this is normal. What about this one? No, that one's not normal, and we need to deal with it. So some of it is very subtle. Frankly, some congregations need to have a visual presence as a safety team. Some do, because of the nature of kind of where they are. Some are much better off on the subtle side. People in plain clothes, people sitting strategically, people looking at things via cameras or whatever. And I like a blend of both, that you can react when you have to. But I don't think anybody wants to have somebody. I was the head of security, so everybody knew me. So I walked around the sanctuary like I owned the joint, other than the pastors. But that was fine. I didn't have other officers pop up or get involved unless it was necessary. So I think you're right. We want to keep it as subtle as possible, while maintaining decorum, but also being able to respond quickly to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think understanding the culture is so important. And this goes across the board to any venue we're talking about, any organization, whether it's a tech firm, it's a government entity, it's a place of worship, is understanding the culture. What's the norm there? How do people act, react, those sort of things? And what are people comfortable with? Now, do you see, kind of give us a lay of the land in terms of the individuals that are in these roles? Are they most frequently members of the church, the synagogue, the mosque, or are there examples where they're brought in from the outside? Because you made a comment about a police officer being assigned there. Kind of just give us
Right.
the lay of the land on what that looks like.
So the first answer to that is preference, what your ministry will tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because let's be honest, you can come in like gangbusters and look like the Secret Service or my old organization, Diplomatic Security, and that may not go over well with the faithful.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So if you have 3 people that show up based upon the fact that everybody else is part of the safety security team, that's not what you want. So first and foremost, what is best? I will tell you what I think is best is a mixture of professionals,
Okay.
preferably all affiliated with the facility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I'm not a huge fan of hiring a contract security firm to come in and do security for your church when they're not familiar with you, they're not familiar with the congregates. And if they are, they need to have somebody like me or a member on my team to help walk them through what that was. So yes, on duty now in the state of Texas, for example, you may not be aware of this. You can't just do this informally. There's got to be licensing, and you also, unless things have changed, you can't call the security team. It's a safety team, because the security team has to have proper licensing. So there's all these nuances. So what tends to happen in that part of the country is that you'll hire off-duty police. So if you hire off-duty police, then that means you have to thoroughly brief them on what you expect from them. Just because they're law enforcement officers doesn't mean they know what the heck to do with it, what you want them to do. So that's the first thing. But I prefer a blend. I prefer volunteers that we can train. Yeah. I also prefer professional folks, maybe a former doctor or a former firefighter or a current firefighter, paramedic. And if they're a member of the church and currently part of the first responder community, I welcome them as well. Now, having said all that, control is a big deal here. So one church that when I first took over as campus safety, I knew that every member of the ministry team carried guns. Mm-hmm. And so I spoke to the lead pastor, and we had a staff meeting, and I said, because, we're glad you're here, blah, you've got all this experience. I said, well, you may not be when I'm done having my conversation here, because here's the deal. Number one, the sanctuary from here on out, unless it's the team or me or designated people, is a no weapons, no shoot zone.
Gotcha.
So if you think you feel better because you're packing heat and you're in the 4th row, I do not want you drawing your weapon and getting involved in the process. That's why we have a safety team. Number one. Number two, if you have to be armed as part of your job, I would like to know.
Yeah.
So that I know who's armed in the building and what's going on. And then finally, I said to the pastoral staff, I said, Dodge City is over with. We're closed. I don't want to hear about your concealed carry weapons and bragging to me that what a good shot you are. That's not what your role is. That's our role. And I had the approval of the lead pastor.
Yeah, right.
Thankfully. But I said, just so you know, we appreciate your help by supporting the program, but I don't need you taking matters into your own hands. So that was the biggest challenge that we got over that. I think there's still a marvelous program. I haven't been with them in a number of years because I went off and did other things. The other side of the coin is, even though you haven't asked the question, is on the ministry side.
Yeah.
What about youth ministers? I've never met a youth minister yet that pays a lot of attention to safety and security. I'm just going to put it out there.
It's honest.
They're popular about being liked, appearing to be youthful, and having everybody think that they are just the Lord's gift to that's going on. So spending time with them, making them understand about roles and responsibilities and behaviors of concern, and make sure I know if you have somebody that showed up that maybe is a member of a gang, that type of stuff. So it really is that same, and I know you've heard this term, it's the same type of a comprehensive protective intelligence and investigation program for houses of worship. You just have different people. You just have ministry staff. You have volunteer staff, whereas before you might have, HR, security, whatever that might be. But it's the same type of people. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that a few years ago, I provided threat management team training to one of the largest evangelical ministries in the country. And Was it a challenge? You bet. But it stuck. It
Yeah.
worked to make
Yeah.
them understand, right? But to fit it within what they're trying to accomplish. We don't if we are stopping people from coming and getting help, we have gone too far. We don't want to over egg the omelet, as my British friends would say. We want to do it's like Goldilocks, what's just right
Yep.
for that particular ministry.
Boy, isn't that the truth? That is so true. You know, it's interesting you brought up youth ministry too, and I think probably if I was to survey people of what do you know about violence that's occurred in houses of worship, it's kind of this typical thought process of, well, the congregation was gathering, someone came in, and then began an act of violence. But you know, when we start talking about all these other components of the
Yeah,
church, the facility that are going on, and youth is a big one because I mean when we look at targeted violence nationally, look at how young so many of these individuals are. So why
yeah,
wouldn't that carry over into the religious world as well? So I couldn't agree with that more, and I think that's many times kind of lost in conversations I've had with different organizations and churches, is that that part is kind of lost, and it's this immense and only focus on, hey, we have worship Sunday morning, Saturday morning, whatever it might be,
right.
and we're focused on that 1 hour. Well, it goes so far beyond that, and in some ways it's 24 hours. So
It does, and one of the things that's very concerning that I see a lot in a houses of worship setting is
yeah.
stalking behavior.
Oh,
You
interesting.
you have a
Yeah.
you maybe you have a young volunteer, you have another individual that's troubled. They become enamored with this person. It's not reciprocated.
Yeah.
I've had more than my share of stalkers within the church, and then we have bad decisions made by leadership. It's not intentional, but
No.
for example, he suspected that somebody was stalking one of the young women in the youth ministry, and he set up an appointment to meet the would-be stalker by himself Sunday evening in the park.
Hmm.
And he was very much upset with me when I showed up and said, "You go home. You have no business doing this, number one. Number two, you're putting yourself at harm's way because
Yeah.
someone's going to accuse you of something untoward." And not surprising, I met this person and the rest is history. So we're able to take care of the problem. But
Yeah.
there's a
Interesting.
trust there that is a naivete sometimes that we have as part of that training progress, make them understand. Yes, we trust,
Yeah.
but trust but verify. To
Yeah.
use that often term phrase, and so we want to do everything we can to keep everything as safe and secure as possible. Custody problems are
Yeah.
huge in the houses of worship
Yeah.
community. People coming to pick up the wrong kids.
Hmm.
There's no protocols in place to do that. I really caused a firestorm, well, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. I was one of the first ones that said, "You know where I want CCTV cameras in the church? In the nursery."
Yeah.
And everybody said, "Oh my God, that's an invasion of privacy." I said, "No, I want to see if someone is scarfing up your child. I want to see who it is. What were the
Yeah.
behaviors to do that?" So I think now that's become more the norm. But understanding, there's nuance that goes on here. But my sense is any house of worship that does not have some kind of a safety or security team or training for them really needs to get rolling with that, because we're in dangerous times. And sadly, Homeland Security has told us, in the FBI, houses of worship are right at like number two
Yeah. Yeah.
of potential targets for a myriad of reasons. So we just have to be aware of that.
Absolutely. No, these are great words, and I hope our listeners, wherever they fall in that, whether they are responsible for a congregation as a priest, a minister, a rabbi, whatever it might be, or they are an elder, or they are a parishioner, that they're listening to
Right.
this and really taking this to heart. And it's interesting you're talking about some of the conversations you've had over the years, and I think it's so important that we all stay in our lane, but we're willing to look into the other lanes, right?
Yeah.
It's going into, let's say, a place of worship. You're not going to give the priest advice on his sermon for that week, and he shouldn't be giving you advice on how you are going to best protect the parishioners. But there's the value of the priest saying, "Hey, I'm going to be talking about a very controversial situation this
Yes.
week,"
Yes.
and likewise, you're going to be saying, And you know what? I am concerned because we've had this individual come in before who has made comments specifically about some of your sermons, and I'm worried about that going. So I think it's stay in your lane, but it's just like driving down the street, right? We're still looking around, we're taking in other things, but we're not going into their lane.
Right, and working with local law enforcement in a
Yeah.
liaison capacity, working with the community,
Yeah.
whether it be for self-help or battered person shelters or whatever that might be, because domestic and intimate partner violence is a real problem within faith-based communities as well. And we've
Right.
been reluctant to really do much about it. We figure it's a personal problem. Well, the news flash is it's not just a personal issue. It affects everybody
Hmm.
within the community. And the houses of worship community is not different. And what I always say, I coined a phrase, I probably need to copyright it at some point. Believe what you see and hear and pick an option.
Yeah.
And so that tells
Well
you a couple
said.
of things. Believe what you see and hear, don't question it, and then pick an option. But that means you have to have some training on what your options are. Can you get out of the sanctuary in a quick way? Where are the
Yeah.
exits? What do those sorts of things look like? How can the pastoral and the choir get off the stage? All these sorts of things, because when it happens quickly.
Yeah.
And people, we say at the center, you need to have a mental permission slip to make some
Right.
decisions on your own behalf.
Yeah.
If you're waiting for pastor to tell you to evacuate the building, I realize many of our faith-based organizations are very hierarchical. That doesn't work. We know now with active assailants, the best way to save lives is to have a plan and to get out of harm's way as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So I guess that kind of takes me to this question. That is, what's kind of that appropriate level of awareness with the congregants? I mean, what are we educating them on what we do and what they need to
Right.
do? What do they need to know?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. So what I recommend is a few things, and I'd still like to see more organizations do this. So nowadays, well, the three of us that still go to movie theaters after the pandemic, but that's a whole other podcast episode, right? What happens before now? It
Yeah.
could be a cartoon character. It might be a graphic that says, if there's an emergency, here's the exits. Here's what you should do. Notify a staff member. If every house of worship would just do that before services, put it up
Mhm.
on the screen,
Mhm.
that they need to know if it doesn't seem right, how to report it and how to get out of there.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The other thing is recognizing what's appropriate behavior and what's not. And if there are people in place, you don't have to give the keys to the kingdom and talk about who's on the team and what their background is, but say, we have a safety team and you'll see us around. And if you need us, either informally, beginning, during, or after a service, or Lord forbid, during a crisis, please reach out to us to do that. And then the final piece is everybody on the staff is an adjunct member of the safety and security team.
Mm-hmm.
So they've had that training. They know what to report. They know who to report. And there's safety in numbers. So it becomes a force multiplier. We don't have to frighten people. Now, when I do training for safety teams, we go through a whole litany of kind of infamous school shootings and church shootings and cases. We don't need to do that with these folks. Need to understand they could turn on the TV and see that, right? They don't have to. But we're not immune from church, and we all have a responsibility to help each other to keep the congregation safe and secure. That's the way I would approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. We spend, I'm sure you do, certainly we do, spend a lot of time really talking about active violence response in other venues, in other organizations, private business, government, et cetera. And we certainly advocate for run, hide, fight, or whatever, style of response that you use. But we certainly like to practice that in the business community and government. Is that something that you would practice in a house of worship?
Yes,
okay.
But I would first of all, I would do it cautiously, and I would do it in incremental steps. Okay. So first of all, the safety team, it's what they do. They need to be trained. Yeah. The second step is do a briefing and include the pastoral staff, right? Or the ushers,
right?
Or the traffic team, or the first impressions team, right? To talk about that, because they're the ones that are going to help folks. As far as getting the congregation fully involved in exercises, not a big fan because there's a lot of potential for that to go wrong. But communicate about it, that we do have plans in place. And if you see something, if you think you're in imminent danger or your family is or whatever, remember, run, hide, fight, and then spell out what that means. And because it's not, one of the other things that kind of annoys me is we fall into this false feeling that run, hide, fight, or we use the outs at CPPS, get out, hide out, whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, but it's not a linear progression.
Right.
So you may have to deliberately, and hiding doesn't mean underneath your chair in the sanctuary. Right. It doesn't mean hiding behind the potted plant in the narthex. It means the best thing you can do is to get the heck out of Dodge. Bruce Lee, my martial arts hero, said it best. He said, to block is to be hit. Yeah. So if I'm close enough to you to have to block or stop you, now, having said that, the other side of the coin, we have to be prepared to neutralize the threat. And that may be to do the unthinkable. But that's not where we start. We talk about this progression and understanding, believe what you see and hear, pick an option. And then believe what you see and hear, pick another option, and keep doing that until you get through the crisis. And getting out of the building doesn't mean standing out front with your coffee. Right. It means going as far away from harm's way as you can. I had a buddy that was a former Alabama State Trooper, a good old boy, and his line was, when he would teach this stuff with me, he said, I want you to get out. I want you to run until you find an IHOP and a cop. because you would know that one or both are there together most of the time, and being a former one myself, but get out of harm's way. The final thing I'll say about that is everybody's hung up on crisis plans and rally points. There is no such thing as a good rally point for an active assailant, an active shooter. Just get the heck. I don't want you standing in the rally point, right? In case there's a secondary target. It works for a fire drill. It can work for other things. But understand that. So understanding and going over those procedures and have them maybe in a video, it's like a cartoon or animation. I've seen it done really, really well. And then answer questions as people have.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great words of wisdom. Hey, one kind of final question, and then we'll just summarize, but what considerations should guide decisions about armed security personnel in places of worship? I mean, is it relevant to the church that has a regular number of, let's say, 100 people each week versus the mega church that may have thousands? Is there kind of a line we say, hey, we'll have them for this size or not that size? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a good one to end on, Jim. And that is, it will depend, again, on what will work better, what will work best for your church, right? Number one. Number two, if you make the decision to have armed security, Dave Benson's rule of thumb is they have to be trained at least to the same level as a professional security officer. At least, and I prefer a higher. That means the head of the safety ministry needs to take them to the firing range at church expense. I want to see you shoot. Don't tell me you're a former cop and you're Annie Oakley's great grandson. I want to see, because the other thing is we interview safety people and security people to make sure they have the right temperament for it. So first of all, it may not be a good fit for you. There is a misconception, in my professional opinion, that you must have an armed safety and security team to be effective. I don't believe that. Okay. But if you have people that are qualified, some of them could be, but they are what we call intervention capable, Jim. Intervention capable means they're not just going to help people get out of the building. They may take on the assailant. But then you have another part of your team. They're unarmed. They understand their roles, but theirs are to observe and report and get people out of the building. So I like that mixture. In my the last ministry that I had, I was blessed, as I said, we had police officers, former police officers, former contract security folks, military, Coast Guard, first responders, all those things. Wow. But we also had rules of engagement that I wrote and was approved by the lead pastor and the county from where we were doing work, and that was the rules of engagement. So we don't have a problem. So understand if you're going to go the armed security route, if you're not willing to provide proper training,
Yeah.
policies, and procedures, and interviewing and hiring practices, don't do it. Just go with a volunteer group. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be almost as effective. Everybody's going to know their role. Bring the police in and let them know. We even had traffic people. The church was so big, we had police doing traffic. So they stayed outside unless there was a problem. And then they came rolling in. And then, oh, by the way, we encouraged them, kind of like, come on our parking lot and doing your report,
Yeah.
or come on in and grab a plate. You know, if there's food being served, I was fine seeing them in uniform. Didn't
Sure.
spook me in the least. But
Yeah.
they understood what the role was versus what it wasn't. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it absolutely did. And I think that is such an important perspective. Now, just kind of finish this up, wrap it up. I mean, I have probably 1,000 other questions. That's why I want you back. But to kind of wrap this up, I've seen over the years a lot of this kind of homegrown idea of safety and security for houses of worship, where
Right.
they see a conversation such as this and go, "Uh-oh, we haven't done anything. We need to do it. Let's get together and talk about this tomorrow." And they come up with this kind of really organic, homegrown, rough approach. And I'm not trying to make this a sales job or anything like that, but there is value in having expert advice, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I recommend a houses of worship assessment
Hmm.
of your
Yeah,
building, of your campus.
absolutely.
That includes all your ministries, your children's ministries, the worship experience. So I think that's critical. It goes over your policies and procedures. Do you have a violence prevention policy within the facility, within the organization?
Yeah,
Do you have a safety team? What is the governance for what their roles are, so everybody understands what that is? And then finally, have an active assailant plan.
yeah,
Not just have one, but then train to that standard. So all those things I think are absolutely critical. They take some time. In the meantime, one of the best things you can do is encourage people to see something, say something, report information. What are those avenues of reporting? And have folks like me or you or whatever
sure.
that can help you and consult with you on potential threats. What's the difference between making a threat, and posing a threat? And
Right.
so we don't overreact, but that there is some kind of a response strategy. I was very fortunate to be one of the editors of what I think is a great book on ministry security that was sponsored by Brotherhood Mutual Insurance.
Oh, I've
It was
read
a
it.
long time ago. Some of the best and
Yeah,
brightest. I had several pieces in there and editing it, but some of my other colleagues, there is good stuff in there. There's checklists. Put together a committee. Who are the best people to be part of that process? Take a look at finances, policies, and procedures. So there's help out there if you want it, and I highly recommend. Yeah, just don't come out and let's strap guns on 5 people and just hope for the best.
right, right. Because I have had those conversations where they've simply said, "Oh yeah, we have retired law enforcement parishioners, and they
Yeah,
all have concealed carry permits and whatnot, and yeah, we're good to go." And no, that's not the case, and it's so complex. And I hope that everyone who's been listening or watching today, they really understand, at least at the peripheral, how complex this is. It isn't just about an individual walking in the doors and doing harm to people seated in the pews. It's beyond that.
yeah.
And so I hope that everyone sees that, hears that, and feels that from our conversation. But Dave, go ahead. You got more? Go for
I'm
it.
just the only thing I was going to say is there is no substitute for scenario-based training.
Yeah,
Coming up with church-specific scenarios. If this happened, if somebody walked down the center aisle and joined the pastor at the altar, what do you do?
right.
From the pastor, what do you do? To the team, what do you do? All those sorts of things, and I think it's really important. The best programs have that.
Yeah.
And we want to be mindful. We don't want to be fearful. We're not fear mongering. We don't want to scare anyway. But with a little planning, you can have a comprehensive ministry security program to be proud of and make a difference.
Absolutely. Because it really is. It's culture based. It's
Yeah.
understanding what the norms are so that you respond appropriately. That is so
Yep.
true. Hey, Dave, I want to thank you so much for being with us today and for all your time and expertise. And I'm going to look forward to inviting you back to the show because we have a lot more to talk about. And as always, we would encourage all of our viewers to get a hold of us, info@belanti.net. If there's more to this conversation that you would like to see, would love to hear from you so that we can get Dave back on here and have a whole list of questions for him that are really generated by you. So, Dave, thank you again. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to take advantage of all the goodies here in the squad room. Our access to our Belanti.net library is all of our past episodes with no commercials. You can go through them. Again, I'd encourage you to watch the first episode or the publicly available episode first, and then the second half here in the squad room. And don't forget to contact us at Belanti.net if you have any questions or need additional services, or just contact me directly, jim.bennett@Belanti.net. So thank you again for joining us, and don't forget that important question before disaster strikes. Are we good?